This is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So, all of my links will be provided for you, my email, my Substack, and locals. So, audio platforms, going to list a few. Google Podcasts, Spotify for podcasters, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. And I'm pushing out and growing to where I am available on all of the podcast platforms. All right, so this episode is all about the lineage of subliminal messages in music, that is, where they originated from. Okay. All right, before I get into it, I just want to give thoughts. So I find it quite interesting when it gets into the aspect of how lore comes out of music. So when you break it down, hush, honey. So when you bring it down, it's quite interesting because it comes out of first knowledge, info, that where it be that song's roots, and then all of the different interpretations behind it, and then linking that into it, it breaks down into the aspect of talking about particularly the songwriter, the singer's lives, and how that links into the reality of the situation of where the theories that is pop up about the aspect of particular messaging in a song. And so the idea of this in the realms of the chain of the mystical lore and aspect of everything goes into the unique spin of the songwriter's persona. It's kind of like when you dig deep in and break everything down, when the aspects of actors and celebrities and how their so-called personal lives are being publicized and how that shapes their body of work. And within music, it also breaks down to the aspect of society of what is said about said songs. So particularly the aspect of vulgarity and the aspect of obscenity with that, and how particularly with music, it is a symbolism of what is said toward the society of how to value these things. So, for instance, rock music, particularly, we're going back to the aspect of glam rock. So that idea of fast cars, fast women, just living it up to the high extent, to the high access, and being proud of it. And then out of this, the realms and different sub-genres of rock, particularly metal, rock metal, and the aspect and the persona of sex and violence and all of this. And then particularly all these things rooted out of the 80s with the parental controls and parents against this, and pushing that persona of subliminal messaging within particular songs, and particularly with Judas Priest, and that being the forerunner of how this is a concrete example of how music is a powerful, with what was pushed at that time. Music is a powerful example of shaping the youth culture. And I think it's one of those things that you have to take a second look at it. And as I mentioned in a previous podcast, now is this with the violence, and particularly with youth violence. Now, what is this all about? Is it that the personal psychological aspect of what these children have seen and went through, factor that in? And then also is a whole idea of seeming, the political aspect of seeming right in the public eye, but at the same time, are you really caring about the values of society? And it's one of those very interesting things when it's linked into music and the subliminal aspect of it. All right, so here we are. Let's get into it. All right, so in the early 17th and 18th century, mathematicians and cryptologists such as John Wilkins and Philip Thickness argued that music cryptology was one of the most instructable ways of transporting secret messages. They claimed that music was perfect camouflage because spies could never suspect music. When played, hush, honey, hush. When played, the music would sound so much like any other composition that musically trained listeners would be easily fooled too. Thickness wrote in 1772 the book A Treatise on the Art of Depicting and Writing in Cryptography. Hush, honey. Sorry about that, my babies. I'm getting a little bit too excited there. Within a harmonic alphabet. Y'all have to hush. Y'all have to be quiet for a little bit, okay? All right? Harmonic alphabet for what? For who that examines a suspected messenger or message would think an old song without words, in which perhaps the messenger's tobacco or snuff might be put, contain a secret it was to convey. Written letters don't have this advantage. So he added, I am persuaded an alphabet of musical notes may be contrived that the notes shall not only convey the harmony but the very words of the song, so that a music master may instruct his female pupil not only how to play upon an instrument, but how to play the fool at the same time. Thickness created an encrypting system that employs quarter and half notes with treble clef and C signature. He claimed that harmonic alphabet ensured strong encryption and expressed the words perfectly to the eyes as they do the harmony to the ear. He also wrote of English philosopher Francis Bacon music cryptography technique, hush honey, in which a particular member of the notes A or B equate to each alphabet letter. A translates to A. Hush, babies, hush. The above method of secret writing is certainly the most ingenious of any ever invented. It is highly likely that messages using coding like this would go undetected, at least to an untrained eye and ear. And To a trained eye, however, says Western Michigan University music professor David Logerberg, code, and of course the source that I'm reading from will be provided to you on Substack. A sequence of notes with a message hidden inside might provoke questions. Since their encryption system is not musical, the manuscript would look suspicious because it contains musical nonsense, he says. If someone were to send composer Michael Haydn 26 notes motif in which the lower bass clef G translates to A and G sharp equals B and so forth, it oscillates on its own music sheet. The motif would look disjointed. When played, it might sound dreadfully boring in style or like a random string of pitches. The prime user of musical encryption were classical composers, but there are no known examples of the technique being used for espionage or intelligent purposes. Rather, most composers put the letters of their names or friends into compositions simply because it was fun. Sometimes a musical version of a name is a subtle reference to the piece of music, Coach says. Often it is very prominent. It is the main theme of the piece and is heard over and over. In that case, whether or not you know exactly how the composer translated the name into musical pitches, it is obvious that it is meant to be heard. These composers wanted to leave a trace of themselves, and they were not secretive about it. They wrote about it or told people what they were doing. That might mind if interested onlookers found their cryptograms. Well-organized music Krippers comes from the 19th century German composer Johannes Brahms. He included a cryptogram in 1868, string sectex number 2 in G major. The summer of 1858, a 25-year-old Brahms fell madly in love with, I believe the pronunciation of her name, Agathe von Siebold, a 23-year-old music director and vocal student of Brahms' friend Julius Otto Grimm. They quickly set plans for marriage, but in January of 1859, he broke off the engagement to focus on his music. Von Siebold later married, and Brahms remained a bachelor until death, but he still longed for her. He incorporated the notes A, G, A, H, E in bars of 162 to 168 in the first movements of his sectex. B natural and German nomenclature is the root of H. The letter T is not noted because it is not a musical note. So according to BBC radio host Tom Service, the motif is played at the piece's greatest and most arching release, likely signaling Brahms' heartache. In a letter to his friend Joseph Gansbacher, I believe the pronunciation, forgive me for that, Joseph, about the sectex, Brahms wrote, "By this work I have freed myself of my last love." Well, before Brahms' time, the Johannes Sebastian Bach spelled out his own name in compositions using a section of the notes B, A, C, H, B natural. This short music monogram is now called the Bach motif, and Bach wove his name in the various pieces, such as his final work, The Art of Fugue. Brahms' close friend and the Romantic era composer Robert Schumann also integrated music cryptograms into his compositions. Schumann placed the cryptograms ASCH, ASCH, and SCHA in his piece Carnival. In German nomenclature, the E flat equates a S and A flat. Excuse me for that. Equates to A's. The three codes represent the name of the 10 fiancés' birthplace of Asch, Germany, now in Czechnia. The second, the German spelling of the Ash to honor the Christian holy day of the Ash Wednesday. The final cryptogram is selected letters from his name. Even as musical styles evolved in the 20th century, music composers such as Joseph Maurice Ravel and Claude Debussy, I'm sure I'm butchering that, but sorry about that. And then Oliver Messiaen and so forth continue experimenting with, and then I think it's Bussy, with musical motifs, some up to 26 notes to spell out their names and compositions. French composer Oliver Messiaen, the cryptology of this, which matches a different note of the all 26 letters in the alphabet, created words that sound similar to his organ work. The meditations of the Trinity, loosely translated. Code says to the notes, they translated to French words from the Summa Theology by philosopher Thomas Aquinas for essence of humankind, paternity, and illumination. Known for his rich tones and complex rhythms, Messiaen was one of the few to develop the cryptology that closely mirrored his own style. All right, so and going on. All right, so cryptologists met in an applied cyber security contest event called the NorthSec Conference in Montreal, Canada. Among the challenges created by NorthSec, it involved an encoded sofa clipper, which is the attendant solved using an encryption key that is defined by 4 elements: a clef, a tone, a mode, and a rhythmic unit. And it's quite interesting adding in the sense of technology to modernize the aspect of this this idea of cryptology, which is the the linear forefront of the musical aspect of just finding messages and playing with the aspect of what you can do with music. And I find that very refreshing, and I find that really refreshing as technology grows and grows and it gets further into the aspect of what it can do. It's quite interesting of what happens with the aspect of music and in the modern society. All right, everybody. So this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. And of course, questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out to me, either email or Substack or locals that I'm on to provide exclusive content on. And it'd be greatly appreciated your support with that. Tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care out there. Bye-bye now.